It is March 23rd, 2012. I'm at the intersection of Green Street and Washington Place at the procession and commemoration of the Triangle Fire of 1911, where we lost our great-aunt Rosie in the fire. Our great-aunt Kate was the last person out of the building. She escaped by jumping out of into an elevator shaft and sliding down the cable. And Grandpa David was also involved, where he, after the acquittal of Blanc and Harris, accosted them in the street and yelled out, "Murderers, murderers." Aunt Rosie and her best friend jumped out the 9th floor window, which is the second to the top floor in this building. They will join so many other people in commemorating the lost lives of 146. This is one of 3 plaques on the building. This 10-story Renaissance loft building, now called the Brown Building. Another plaque commemorating the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory as a national landmark. And a 3rd plaque talking about the International Lady Garment Workers Union and the 146 Lives Lost. We're going to scale up the building. And it's the second to top floor that she jumped from and somehow landed on the sidewalk. Here for 100 feet, or here for 100 feet. So here we are at Gould Plaza. We just laid out the shirtwaist for the procession. And there's Rosie Weiner's shirtwaist that I will be carrying very proudly. All these people are here. That's all right. So we got kids from various schools to help us carry. They're all over the place, and they're all here to commemorate the 1911 Triangle Fire. It's middle school. There's great-aunt Rosie. Her placard will be marched along with too. Thank you! Everybody's getting ready for the shirtwaist procession. And Cousin Suzanne.
Are you just doing this because there's a couple other things today that you might want to do?
You don't mind, do you? I'm gonna get a picture. Oh wow, they're doing a funeral procession kind of march. Alan was here?
No, Alan died. Ralph.
Yeah, Alan had just passed away.
No, 1997.
Oh, I thought he had just
2007.
2007. I didn't think it was.
Yeah, 2007.
If we're going to be following all of that, it's going to take us a long time to get there.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Washington Street now. So you said she got about $300.
Yeah, my collection is 375. So
Yeah.
But enough to buy the farm that probably
David bought. Because I know he had a farm.
Remember going up to that farm and riding bareback horses.
Now, have you spoken or met Joanne Honigman at all? So Joanne is the granddaughter of Joseph Weiner.
Okay, I don't know her at all.
She lives in Brooklyn. Her sister lives in Jersey, but her mother's still alive. So the daughter, just like in my father's generation, the daughter of Joseph Weiner. And they actually went up to Rensselaer County and have copies of the deeds. I got copies of the deeds.
Oh my God.
And we know exactly where the farm was.
Oh my God.
So I can send those documents to you.
Oh yeah, because I have a house upstate.
Yeah, we know exactly what piece of property it is and where it's located. We have copies of this. And Sarah's name is actually on the deed. As you know, we thought at first that maybe David was married to a woman named Sarah. And then we found out that no, that was his mother. See, if we had spent time together, I had planned to bring this whole USB disc to, but we'll do it some other time. We'll do it some other time because I have so much documentation.
We have a book to write in my spare time.
Well, as a matter of fact, it's funny you say that. But another grandson of Joseph Weiner, whose name is White, has been writing this book of many generations, going back to the old city of Tacoma. So we have lots of family. Did you ever look at what I sent you, that big genealogical chart?
It was like
250 people there.
blown away.
It's easier to see on the web. So if you, I'm sure you have internet access, high speed. You can look at it from that point of view versus looking at it. can't hide it from me, Dad. You can't hide it from me. Maybe from everybody else, not from me. Nice flow at the top.
Oh my God. Is that right? Yeah. I know a producer.
United. SEIU. I've had the opportunity to stand before you probably for some 25 and some people think it's 40 years. And I know that this is the first time that we have stood out here and been out here at this site, at this location, where it has not been under 25 degrees. So please give a warm welcome and a warm round of applause for the weather. As we were putting this together, I was very concerned, and I actually made a commitment that it would not be nights like this. But it turned out, and I'm really pleased at that. Would you please join me in giving a warm round of applause for the New York Labor Chorus? Weren't they great? And we thank them for participating, and they have been with us for so many years in this incredible event. I would also ask you to give a round of applause for the folks that are part of our coalition and carrying the shirtwaist. These were worn by women working in this building and garment workers at the turn of the century. As we kick off our program, I'd first like to introduce somebody who's been with us for a very, very long time. Rabbi Feinberg. Michael Feinberg is a long-time worker rights advocate and is the executive director of the Greater New York Labor Religious Coalition. He has stood with us on many occasions and offered us many prayers in memory of the workers who died here needlessly in 1911. Please welcome Rabbi Michael Feinberg.
Good afternoon. I'd like to offer this prayer and invocation for people of all faiths and no faith gathered here today. Eternal One of blessing, God of all humanity, you gather us here today from across our city, from across the nation, and from across the globe, from our many workplaces and neighborhoods, from our union halls and our community centers, from our schools and universities, from our mosques, our synagogues, our churches and temples. You gather us in all of our magnificent diversity to be of one voice, of one heart, of one intention, to remember and to mourn for the 146 workers, mostly young women and girls, who perished at this spot some 101 years ago. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be for a blessing. We remember, too, the many workers here in our own city, in our own times, who have been injured or killed on the job, on unsafe construction sites and factory floors. God of justice, you gather us today not simply to mourn, but to recommit ourselves to work for change, that no others are maimed or killed due to unsafe working conditions, that all workers may come to enjoy what are their basic and democratic rights: a safe and secure workplace, a living wage, dignity, equality, and the right to organize. And so we gather here today to answer your call, justice, justice you shall pursue.
Amen.
And in this place, together we pledge to pursue your vision of justice from Wall Street to Main Street, from the shop floor to the corporate boardroom, from City Hall to the halls of Congress, until, in the words of your prophet Amos, justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. This is our prayer, this is our work together, today and for all of our days, and together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Steinberg. As you all know, 101 years ago, 146 young immigrant workers died in this tragic fire. Months before that, thousands of mostly women workers went out on strike for better working conditions. Concerned citizens also joined with labor to support these strikers, and they were able to make some changes, but certainly not enough. A century ago, safe workplaces were not a given, they had to be fought for. Unbelievably, today, safe workplaces still have to be fought for in this country and around the world. My union represents workers in various industries, including the laundry industry and the garment industry, two very difficult industries to have to work in. We've been fighting for over 100 years to stamp out sweatshops. And in 2012, I'm sorry to say that we have to continue with this struggle. But when we work together, labor and community workers and consumers, progress can be made here and abroad. Labor's struggle is a global struggle. As corporations search for cheap labor around the world, we must act in solidarity to assure that no worker anywhere is exploited. For the last 2 years, we have laid flowers for garment workers who have died in that incredible garment factory fire in Bangladesh. The lowest paid garment workers in the world. Hundreds of Bangladeshi garment workers have died, and countless more have been injured in preventable factory fires and building collapses. These factories made clothing for some of the top U.S. brands and stores, including Tommy Hilfiger, The Gap, and Kohl's, just to mention a few. But today, we have some positive news. Because of international pressure, Phillips Van Heusen, better known as PVH Corporation, one of the world's largest apparel companies, whose brands include Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Van Heusen, Izod, Arrow, and Bass, have announced a landmark agreement on fire and building safety. For the very first time, a large apparel company has agreed to a legally binding, enforceable fire and building safety program, and what is equally important, they have committed over $1 million to fund that program. This is a very important breakthrough. The program will only go into effect when at least 3 other well-known international brand owners sign on to that agreement, so we have some work to do.
$20 million,
but you can help as well. You can help pressure these companies that are sitting on the fence, like The Gap, by signing a petition. And I would ask you to remember this short website, www.laborrights.org. www.laborrights.org, and go onto that website and sign that petition to pressure those additional companies to sign on so that we can make sure that workers around the world are going to be very, very safe. 100 years ago, our community stood up and said, enough is enough. And enough is enough. And today, we do the same. Thank you very much.
Dad's getting his picture taken and his video taken all the time.
There's somebody who I have a great honor of introducing. I've known quite a long time and worked with him very, very closely. It's Noel Beasley, who is the president of Workers United. As director of the Chicago and Midwest Regional Joint Board for the last 25 years, Noel has led struggles to save jobs in countries such as Hart Marx and Hugo Boss and employ hundreds of workers in his area. Active in both the workplace and politics, Noel has helped get one of his members elected to Congress. We have a woman, Dane Schakowsky, okay, who's a member of Congress who works in Noel's area, who is very instrumental in getting elected. As somebody who represents common workers in the apparel industry, please welcome Noel Beasley, President of Workers United.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome our union brothers and sisters, our city school children, our elected officials, family members of the fire victims, health and safety advocates, and all the community members who have joined us here today. We gather today on sacred ground. Every year we are here to remember the victims of this tragic fire, but also to honor their legacy by continuing our commitment to struggle for respect and decency and honor for working people around the globe. On March 25th, 1911, just around closing time, a fire broke out at the Triangle Shirtwaist factory. The fire swept through the top 3 floors, where hundreds of young immigrant workers were sewing. The workers tried to get out of the building, but found, just as the workers did in Bangladesh a few years ago, that the exits were locked. In a few short minutes, 146 perished, many jumping to their deaths from those very windows. Unfortunately, in those times and in these times, there are many fires that destroy workers' lives and damage their families forever. Why then is this event so important that more than 100 years later we still continue to gather at this site? Why? Because this fire galvanized a nation. Enough is enough was repeated and change was called for. The union's membership grew. We fought for better working conditions and pressured the government to pass the labor laws and the fire safety regulations that continue to protect us today. But in 2012, much has changed. There are forces gathered together now in this country designed to push us back beyond 100 years ago and reverse all of this legislation and all of this protection that blood was spilled for on these streets and around this country. Around the nation and all over the world, workers are needlessly dying because their employers put profits over people. Today, we will hear from a worker in industrial laundry on Long Island. This workplace is far too similar to the Triangle Fire of over 100 years ago. The workers are mostly new immigrants. The working conditions are long and terrible, and the workers are poorly paid. The facility is unsafe. The laundry is unsafe. In fact, the company has been cited for numerous safety violations, and a plant they have in New Jersey was closed as unfit for human habitation. But this company is making money and definitely putting its profits ahead of its workers. This continues to be totally unacceptable, and our union will continue to fight back to assure that a century and more after the Triangle Fire, this does not and cannot and will not continue to happen. After the fire in 1911, workers stood up and fought back. And also in 1912, workers in a textile mill in Lawrence, Massachusetts also fought back. The Lawrence workers went on strike, not only for better working conditions, but as one of the women so eloquently stated, we want bread, but we want roses too. As workers, we want a living wage. And as human beings, we want culture and we want beauty as well. Anything less is unacceptable. That's what the labor movement fights for. Humane working conditions and dignity for working people. Bread and roses. And we're very honored to have with us today Robert Ferrand, a history professor from University of Massachusetts Lowell, who helped to organize the Bread and Roses Centennial events in Lawrence this year. Today, as we listen to the speakers, as we watch the fire ladder rise next to the building, and as we lay the flowers for the dead, I would like to ask all of us to remember the struggles of the past, but to realize that these struggles are not over. As we leave, let us all commit to fighting for the future, so that everyone in our nation and around the world has bread and has roses too. We will continue to respectfully mourn the dead, and we will continue to fight like hell for the living. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Beasley. It gives me an honor to introduce the next speaker because I've known her for a long time as well, and she has been with us on many, many occasions and for many years. The Speaker of the New York City Council, Christine Quinn, has joined us at this podium and has spoken at the Triangle Fire Commemoration and has joined us for many other events as well. She has worked on issues that are important to working people, such as affordable housing, education, the environment, marriage equality, and immigrant rights, just to mention a few. We are certainly pleased and honored to have her here with us today. Please welcome Christine Quinn, Speaker of the New York City Council.
I have a little bit of laryngitis, so I apologize. But Edgar, thank you very much, and President Beasley, thank you very much. I also want to thank Rabbi Feinberg for being with us today and for all of the times he has stood with workers in New York City. I want to thank the other leaders of labor who are here with us today, Bruce Rayner, Vinny Alvarez, Michael Mulgrew of our teachers union, and many others who will be coming later. I want to thank our great fire department for being with us here today and here on so many days in New York City when New Yorkers are in need. When President Beasley is right, there is much work to be done. But I don't want us to overlook the announcement that Edgar made about the amazing agreement with the Van Heusen Corporation. That is an important step forward that will help us in our efforts with the Gap and the other companies that President Beasley has outlined. But we need to remember and make note and be proud of ourselves that the only reason that agreement was reached with that company is because of the work of organized labor and because of the work of all of you for 101 years. Those companies did not come to this agreement. They did not offer $1 million because they wanted to. They did it because they had to. Because all of you with organized labor made it clear to them that they would pay one way or another, and it was better to pay now and do it the right way in support of workers. All of you made that happen in the memory of the women who died at this fire, and that work needs to, and I know coming to this event year after year, will continue not just in our 5 boroughs, but across this state and across the country. And for that, I thank all of you so very, very much. And as we remember and pray for the memory of the women and their families, we should be energized and deepen our commitment to move forward. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you so much, Quinn, and thank you for those inspiring words and certainly for your support in behalf of working people. The next person I'd like to introduce is the President of the New York City Central Labor Council of the AFL-CIO. as a rank and file member of Local 3 of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Safety and for the health of each and every worker in this country. Thank you so much all.
Thank you, President Katie Alvarez. You know, every year we have a number of children from the schools in the community and around New York. They come to the event. So I want to call out your school and I want to know whether you're here. How about those kids from World Journalism Preparatory School? Make some noise. And they come from Flushing, we're glad that you're here. How about New York City Public School 258, also in Queens? Where are you? We appreciate you here. We have Finley Middle School, who has come from Finley. I understand you guys are from Huntington, is that right? All right, that's a good hour trip. Thanks so much for being here.
I didn't know they were from Huntington. That's
some
amazing.
Some of our students from Martha Valley High School. Oh boy. We also have a number of people that I would certainly like to acknowledge and recognize. People who have been involved in this event for many, many years, and we're certainly glad and pleased that they are here. Firstly, let me acknowledge and recognize somebody who's been also engaged in this event for many years. A person and a man who's been standing up for working people probably as long as he's been alive. A friend of working people, friend of labor, friend of mine, Rosie Weiner, President Emeritus of Workers United. We also have some folks that have been good sponsors, because when you put together an event like this, you need some money to do it. It doesn't happen by itself. And I'd like to introduce first the President of the Amalgamated Life Insurance Company, Dave Walsh, is here. And when you need money, one of the places that you should go to is to a bank. And one of the places that we're able to go to is the Amalgamated Bank, who has been very, very supportive. And I'd like to acknowledge Ed Greenbaugh, the chairman and president of the Amalgamated Bank. We really appreciate the support from both of you. I will be introducing other people as we move through the program. Now it gives me an honor to introduce the next speaker. Somebody I've had the opportunity to introduce to working people and certainly to members of our union, to the garment workers here in Chinatown, and to retirees for many, many years. John Liu, the controller of the city of New York, served in the New York City Council, representing many of our union members in Queens. He was actually also my councilman when he was in that capacity. He has worked to ensure equal access to city services regardless of language ability. As controller, John has worked aggressively to root out waste and inefficiency and has succeeded in correcting wasteful city practice. He has used his positions to strengthen government's accountability, to promote civil rights and to fight discrimination, and to ensure that our city's economic development reaches all New Yorkers. Please welcome John Liu, controller of the city.
Woo!
Thank you, Edgar, for that kind introduction, and thank you, President Beasley, for the invitation once again to gather with all of you on the corner of Washington and Green, where every year around this time we gather to commemorate what happened at this point 101 years ago. What happened then was an extreme tragedy. An extreme tragedy that, as many of the speakers this morning have already said, resulted in a great deal of reform and improvement.
Round of applause for being here. One person that I have to acknowledge that I think has been here more times than me, all right, and that is Vincent Maltese, president of the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire Memorial Society, who has been coming to these events for more years than I'm sure that even he remembers. And we're certainly glad to have you here, Vince, and all of the members of the families representing victims of this tragic fire. I'd also like to acknowledge my colleagues of the General Executive Board of Workers United. They're out there dispersed in the crowd somewhere. Please give them a round of applause as well for their support of this event. I'd like to acknowledge the Secretary-Treasurer of the New York City Central Labor Council, Janella Hines, who is here with us today. I'd I'd also like to recognize somebody who's been very supportive of the work of working people here. He is the chair of the Labor Committee of the New York State Assembly, Brother Keith Wright. Please welcome here. Our next speaker is another newcomer to his position, but not a newcomer to people's issue and to workers' problems and the fight for working people. He is Mario Salento, president of the New York State AFL-CIO. Mario has been a member of the Newspaper Guild of the CWA since 1990. Began working at the New York State AFL in 1992 and served as the Public Relations Director and Chief of Staff before being elected the organization's president in 2011. Mario has coordinated numerous campaigns and other activities for the State Federation and was instrumental in getting Working New York, a talk show on policies, issues, and initiatives important to workers and their families, on television. Currently, Mario is a commissioner on the New York State Insurance Fund and served on the executive boards of various labor-related organizations. Please welcome Mario Salento, President of New York State AFL-CIO.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you very much. You know, it's really a privilege. It's a privilege for me to be here today. And first, I just want to say that I want to thank everyone responsible at Workers United for putting this together every year, because I've always been sort of in awe of the fact that you've been able to keep the memory alive of the victims of this terrible tragedy for 101 years now. And to keep them so close to our hearts, because, you know, that's really the core of what this movement is about. It's about looking back at our past, learning from it, and then forging ahead into the future. So thank you, everyone who puts this together each and every year. Now, I've been coming to this event for the better part of 20 years, and every year I see a lot of familiar faces, and that's always very heartening to me, to see so many of us committed to the goal, first of remembering the victims of this terrible tragedy, and the commitment that we have to making sure that it never happens again. But I'll tell you something that's even more heartening to me, and I think even more important, is that for the last few years I've seen a lot of new faces. I've seen a lot of new people here, year after year for the last few years. And that means that we're doing our job as a movement, because we're passing this down from generation to generation, making sure that we are ever more vigilant in the fact that nothing like this ever happens again. Now, whether you're here for the first time, whether you're here for the 10th time, whether you've been here throughout, it's important to keep in mind that it's our fight. It's labor's fight to make sure that there's a safe and healthy workplace for everyone. The fight is no less today than it was 101 years ago. In fact, the fight is even greater today than it was 101 years ago, because there are so many who want to see us diminished. And we just won't let that happen, will we? No. Well, brothers and sisters, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for everyone who's been here today, because I see together the collective movement that we have and the collective commitment that we have to remembering our past. But most important, the collective commitment that we have to providing future generations with a safer work environment than the generations before them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mario. We appreciate your participation in your activities surrounding this event. The next speaker is a worker. You're going to hear a story from Tanya Velasco, who is from JBK Operations, the company out in Long Island, which is an industrial laundry factory. Tanya worked at JBK Industrial Laundry on Long Island for 6 years. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tanya. Keep on doing the right thing, not only for yourself but other workers as well. The next speaker is another friend of not only Workers United and the trade union movement, but he's a person who really doesn't need much of an introduction. And the reason for that is because you see his face in the paper, you see him on television almost all of the time. And that is because he's out there fighting for his workers and his members each and every day. Please welcome Michael Mulgrew, President of the United Federation of Teachers.
Okay, where are all the students? Let's go. Come on, put your hands up. You're not in class today. Are you happy? Yeah. Your outside is beautiful out. You could be in your classroom. Are you happy? Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to play teacher for a moment. When this tragedy happened, the root cause of it was greed. Plain and simple greed. The owners had decided it was not cost effective to put in the proper safety measures. And it gets worse than that. They actually made money on the fire.
Murderers.
Now that was 1911. And we sit here today remembering that, but I want to be clear with everyone. That does not mean there are still things that drastically need to be changed. In 1911, I will compare it to this year. The income disparity in this city is greater in 2012 than it was in 1911. And why is that? Because of greed.
That's right.
So for the students who are here today, you get the day out of the classroom. It's not freezing. But I want you to remember that if we want to have a better society as we move forward, we always have to fight. We always have to stand up, because those who live by greed will never stop. And the only way they back down is when we stand up as a community, as one, and say we want a good life for everyone, and we will not deal with your greed. To the students, enjoy the day. You're very lucky. Thank you. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah. You sure? You can go back to class. I'll get a bus fast and take you back to class. It's all right. You're good. So thank you all, everybody, and thank you for all the people for remembering this. But remember, we can never forget, because we still always have to fight. Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Diane Fortuna, the great niece of Daisy Lopez Fitzy. Our photograph is there. Early Saturday morning, March 25th, 1911, Daisy walked from Charlton Street, where she was living, to the Ash Building, where she worked. She was born in British Columbia, West Indies, of Spanish and English parentage, and she had been injured in the Great Kingston earthquake of 1907. With the reparations paid by the Red Cross for her injuries, she and my grandmother came to this country. They were full of optimism and youth, and they arrived in New York as refugees, but they left all thoughts of fire, death, and destruction behind them. They had sailed in on a tropic breeze and landed squarely on their feet. By 1910, my grandmother was in nursing school at Coney Island, and Daisy was living in a boarding house south of the village. She married and was a bride of 10 weeks when she came to work that fateful morning. Her husband had left for Switzerland, where he was going to buy an inn, and the two of them were going to start out in a new life. The world lay all before her. Daisy Lopez Fitzy never came home from the Triangle factory fire. When it broke out, she was on the 8th floor. I'm sorry. When it broke out on the 8th floor, she was on the 9th floor where she worked. But very shortly thereafter, there was no place to go. I need not repeat the details of the fire that you've heard so very often. Elevators jammed, doors were locked, entries and entrances and exits were terribly narrow. Girls panicked, and they died. 46 people died, most of them immigrant girls. And New York was astounded and overwhelmed. They were in unparalleled grief. 2 weeks after the fire, there was a solemn funeral procession in which 100,000 people marched and 300,000 people watched in a driving rain. Horrified by the tragedy, the New York State Legislature, spurred by Robert Wagner and Al Smith, and the New York Investigating Commission, led by Francis Perkins, enacted regulations affecting wages, hours, sanitary conditions, and workplace safety regulations that still are in place in the city and across the country. Between 1911 and 1913, 60 laws were enacted, 60 new laws. To ensure the safety of working places. Entries and egresses were mandated, the availability of fire extinguishers, the installation of alarm systems, automatic sprinklers and fireproofing, better eating and toilet facilities for workers.
Is that a stick with keys on it?
All these elements were enacted. The fire also strengthened the national union movement and led to the growth of the International Ladies Garments Workers Union, which fought for better working conditions for sweatshop workers everywhere.
You're coming over to take a picture of it. I wasn't sure what it was.
The ILGWU's more recent manifestations, Workers United, and many other unions continue the struggle today. Today, more than ever, the efforts of unions are necessary.
I'm sorry.
Even as I speak, workers' rights are threatened in Spain and Italy, in the third world, in Chinatown, across the nation, and particularly in Wisconsin. At the Triangle Commemoration in 2009, I was standing on line to place a flower on the sidewalk in honor of my great aunt. I had just been given a white carnation when a whole group of children, excited, came running up with red flowers. So how come you get a red flower and I get a white one? I asked one little boy rather quizzically. Utterly serious, he replied, "These are for the Bangladeshi." Though no monument to the Triangle workers exists, though their names are nowhere inscribed on the facade of the Ash Building.
Do they read the names?
The 146 workers of the Triangle have become symbols of the ongoing quest for worker protection and safety. As Francis Perkins, then New York Commissioner of Labor, said, "We will never forget them." Thank you.
Symbolic raising of the ladder that only made it to the 6th floor. And unfortunately, the people who perished were on the 8th and 9th floors. Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry, sir. That's as far as she went. my dad. We'll do it some other time. We're all going to have to go. We're all going together. Well, what's that?
Age 17.
Go ahead, Dad.
And her older sister, Rosie Brennan, age 23.
My great aunt, Philippa.
Rosie Weiner, our great aunt.
My great aunt, Rose Grasso, 16 years old.
Grandfather, Ray Rosa, age 33.
Sandy Rosen, 21.
Rosenthal, age 21.